Hey guys, my name is Haley, and I'm slightly blinded and can't really see because the sun is right there, but this is the time I have to film this because this is supposed to go up tomorrow. So, hello. We're going to be filming my April and May wrap up. I never filmed an April wrap up because I only read 6 books, and then I was like, oh, I'm not going to read that much in May. And then I did. And I have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 16 books to talk about. So we're just gonna jump right on in. Forgot I was filming a sit down video and not a vlog. I went to end the clip. I'm also filming Pride vlogs right now, so there's a lot going on. I'm very scatterbrained. But I need to pull up my iPad. Actually, pause. Okay. So in April, I don't really know what was going on and why I didn't read anything, but here are the 7 books I read in April, most of which were graphic novels. I read Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. This is rivaling. I can't talk. It is rivaling Check and Mate as my favorite Ali Hazelwood because I loved this. And I have never really cared for sports romances because I am not a sports ball. Oh, I just bumped the mic. I am not a sports ball person in real life, at all. And I know this isn't sports ball, it's literally about competitive diving, but I really enjoyed this. I really loved both of our characters. I liked that she had to get over her mental block when it came to diving because of her trauma. You can probably hear the sirens outside. I can't do anything about that. I'm sorry. Maybe the mic's not picking it up. I need to get a new mic so bad. I know that some of you are irritated with the crinkly sound that the mic makes. So I keep trying to mitigate it by not using the stick and not using the clip because all of those make noise. And so we'll see how the audio quality is on this one. But I'm in the process of looking for a new mic. Never fear. Anyway, I really loved Deep End. I gave it 5 stars. It might be my favorite Ali Hazelwood. That is up for debate, and I will not be changing my mind at this time. And then because I read that one, the reason I took so long to read Ali Hazelwood's 2 newest books is because everybody kept saying that, oh, they're so different from her other ones. We don't really like them, and they're way spicier. And I've not been in a spicy mood very much lately, so I was like, oh, I don't know if I'll like those. And I loved Deep End, even with all of the spice. So I went and read Not in Love, which I never read before, or I hadn't read because it had just come out when I binge read all of Ali Hazelwood's books. I think it was last summer, if you were here for that. And I really like this. It's not one of my favorites. It might be one of my least favorites. My least favorite Ali Hazelwood is it Love? Yeah. Love on the Brain. I was not a fan of that one. But it's around that one. I really like this. This is the one I remember the least about, though, but I did read these back to back in quick succession, so I might have confused some of the points. But yeah, I gave Not in Love, I believe, 3.5. It was a good book. I would recommend it to people, but not my favorite. And then one morning, we were spending the night at my partner's brother's house, and they both took a really long time to wake up, and I was up for a while, so I sat on the couch and just sat my little butt down at 7 a.m. and read Horrifying by Piper CJ. This is her paranormal ghost, spicy novel that came out. I don't remember when because she dropped it randomly. I think it might have been Valentine's Day. And I really liked it. I thought it was really fun. And I gave it, I want to say 3.5 stars. It's quick. I read it in a little over an hour. It's only 130 pages. I really like Piper CJ's work. I know there's a lot of controversy about her online that I don't understand. I don't get the controversy there, but I liked this. I would recommend it if you're interested, if you want spicy ghost sex. That's kind of what the book is about. And then I read 3 graphic novels in quick succession. I think I might have even read them all at the same time or within the same day because I realized I had read nothing the entire month after I read the Ali Hazel. It's I read the first 2 and I was like, I'm good. And then it was 2.5 weeks later and I was like, oh, I've read nothing. Oops. But I read Us by Sarah Solar. This is a really, really cute little queer graphic novel. It's going to be in a graphic novel, queer graphic novel recommendation here soon for Pride. So look forward to that. But I really enjoyed this. I gave it 5 stars. It was so cute. I love the art style. Big fan. Switching hands because this mic, holding the mic like this is really uncomfortable. I'm trying to make it not make noise, and I'm going to be mad when I edit it. It still is. And then I read Bingo Love by T. Franklin. This was only like 80 pages. I gave it 4 stars. It is about these Black women who were in love, but in a time period where that was not allowed, and they were not allowed to be together and or get married, so they both ended up marrying men. And then they meet later in life after their men have passed away or they got divorced, or both. I don't remember the details. I read it in like 20 minutes, but it was really cute. I really enjoyed it. And then I read The Ribbon Skirt by Cameron Mukwa. And this is the story of a native boy who learns that they are two-spirit and they want to dress up in a ribbon skirt is what they're called in their culture. And this was a super heartwarming, super sweet story. I love stories about natives. If you didn't know this, I've been like trying to research into like natives in America because I feel like I didn't learn very much about it when I was in school. So I've been collecting a lot of native books and stuff, and both me and my partner are very interested in their culture. So yeah, I really love this graphic novel. I highly recommend it. It's also going to be, all 3 of these are going to be in my graphic novel recommendations for Pride Month. And then the last book, the lighting difference. The last book that I read in April was Out of Our Minds. This is kind of what I was reading the whole month. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I was just reading this off and on while I was at work and like taking notes and everything. I highlighted, I need to tab. I don't think I actually tabbed everything. Oh, my bookmark's still in there. Oops. I should get that. But this is Turning the Tide of Anti-Intellectualism in American Schools. I plan to do a whole video, at least sit down, if not series, on this because I've read 2 books on teaching and the issues within American schools, and I feel like more people need to be educated on what actually happens, where funding goes, what are the actual issues, but also be aware that defunding public schools and public education does not help, as some people in power seem to think that that is the only way to do things. And as somebody who works in education as a early childhood educator in daycares with children's age 0 to 5, and also a lot of the time school agers, more people need to know about what goes on in here. So I'm hoping that series will be coming soon. But yes, I gave this 5 stars. I loved it. And then we got into the month of May, and I kind of just started reading a bunch of my physical TBR, which I feel like I haven't done in a very, very long time. As you can see, I think only one of the books from that month was from my physical TBR. This was also before I knew I was moving. I don't know if I've said that out loud on this channel yet, because I think this is going up before the vlog, but I am moving soon, which is why my life has been so chaotic. But even before I knew that, I was reading a lot of books on my physical TBR. Don't know where that urge came from, but here we are. The first book I read in the month was The Favorites by Lane Fargo. I sat down and was like, oh, I'm just gonna read like a couple of chapters of this. I started at 6 p.m. You see the dog ears? Can you see those? There's so many. I started at 6 p.m. I stayed up until 1 or 2 a.m. finishing this book. Do you know what the last time I did that was? Neither do I. Not a clue. I don't do that anymore. I haven't done that in a very long time. So this was an easy 5-star for me. It's probably going to be on my favorite books of the year, and I absolutely understand the hype because this is also a book that got me to care about literally sports. It's about ice dancing, of all things. Have I ever watched ice dancing in my life? No. Would I? Probably not. Did I love the hell out of how messy this situation and these characters were? Yeah. I really did. I had a great time. I could not put this down. Literally, my partner really kept trying to come like hang out with me, and I was like, I'm gonna be so for real with you. I'm really into this book right now. I cannot focus on the other things until this is done. It was one of those situations, and those are rare to come by nowadays in my life. So if you haven't read this, the hype is real. Very, very real, and I wholeheartedly agree. And then there was only one person that I had ever seen talk about these books, and they like explained it, and I was like, that sounds kind of weird and funny. maybe I'll check it out. And I saw it was on KU, and I was like, oh, yeah, I'll read it. I'll check it out. I read Dungeon Crawler Carl. Have I seen this everywhere since I started reading it? Yes. I don't know if I just caught it right before that hype train took off, because the only person I had ever seen mention it was Beth Bartholomew, who's a British booktuber. Will there ever be a day that I'm not interrupted by a phone call or alarm that I forgot about? Probably not. Anyway, don't know where it cut me off, but the only person I've ever seen talk about this series was Beth Bartholomew before I read it. And since I did that, I've had friends in real life like message on Facebook that they are reading it. I've seen it all over Bookstagram. I went looking for the copies and then realized they were like reprinting them in hardcover and they're stupid expensive and I'm mad about it. I don't know where on this list. I read the first two, and I'm just going to throw the other one in here because spoilers. But I read Dungeon Crawler Call and Carl's Doomsday Scenario. And this is the story of, it sounds so dumb, and that's why I was like, I don't know about that. And then I'm obsessed with it. This is the story about Carl. He and his girlfriend have just broken up, and he is still like babysitting their cat or her cat, who's like this prize show winning cat, like does cat shows like dog shows but cat shows, which I don't think I've ever watched a cat show, but that sounds amazing. And one night the cat escapes through the window and he's like, I can't let my ex's like prize possession award winning cat disappear out into the night in the middle of the night. It's like freezing cold outside and he crawls out the window in just his boxers with no shoes on. And as he's trying to save this cat, everything in the world, on Earth, that was underneath a roof of any kind, so if you were in the house, if you were in a building, if you were in a car, if you were under an awning, gets flattened. And you learn that these aliens have taken over Earth or have been here for a little while and have been planning this. And everybody who was underneath an awning died. And the only people that are still alive were people that were outside at the time with nothing overhead. And you have like, I think it's like a minute to decide if you're just going to try to survive on whatever is left of the earth, or you can run into where all of these little openings are popping up to go underground and become a dungeon crawler for a prize. And it turns out it's this like broadcast to the universe thing, like game show, but this is also written as if it's a RPG, like lit. I think that's what they're called, a lit RPG. I don't know what they're called. I'm not gonna lie, I've never read or heard of any other ones besides this. But it's literally like you're watching Baldur's Gate or like Dungeons and Dragons, but in book form. And I was like, I don't know if I will like that because I like watching other people play those games. I don't like playing them myself. And I ended up really loving this. I just love Carl. He's like ex-military, so he's actually really good at this whole like fighting thing. And then also the cat becomes sentient, and I am obsessed with Princess Donut. I'm obsessed with her. She's one of the funniest characters I've read in a long time, and I need everybody to read the series. It seems that that hype train has taken off, and they definitely are. So I'm not the only one, but yeah, I read the first two of these. And I'm only taking a break because it's Pride Month, and I only read queer books in Pride Month, usually. Hopefully, we'll still be able to stick to that with all of the moving shenanigans. And then I actually have a vlog for this one, so you'll hear me talk more about it there. I'm going to give you a short summary because I want you to go watch the other video. But I read The Black Kids by Christina Hammonds Reed, and this is about the LA riots in the 90s. Yep, 1992. And it is about a girl who is very privileged. She is black, but she was brought up in a very rich family household, so she's kind of been like shielded or like sheltered from a lot of things that other black kids in her school experience and in her community. And she ends up getting involved because her sister is a socialist and is trying to tell her more about things. And she meets a boy. Sorry, I just realized just how many tabs are in here. As you can see, I love this. She meets a boy and she ends up talking to him and learns a lot more about the black experience that she has never had to do because she was sheltered from it from her parents. I loved all the talk about socialism in here. That is a topic I'm very interested in. I just think this is a very, very, very important not queer, this one is not queer, I don't think. A very important coming of age novel for YA. and I've never heard anybody talk about it. So I spent like at least 20 plus minutes rambling about this in my reading vlog that I posted a couple weeks ago. So I will link that down below if you are interested. But I highly recommend this, and more people need to read it. And then I read Archer's Voice, also in the same vlog. I hated this. I think I gave it 2 stars. I think it's more like a 1.5. I liked the small town. I hated our main character. I liked Archer. Hated everybody else in the town. I I even say in the vlog, this book is a prime example of I can read a book fast. Just because I read a book fast doesn't necessarily mean it was a good book. It just means it was an easy read. Not even a fun easy read. I hated a particular character in the if you want to hear me rant about this, go watch my vlog because I did for several minutes. And then I read Blob, a love story. This is one of those weird girl lit. Sorry, my iPad keeps going dark. One of those weird girl lit books that everybody talks about. I recognize the cover. I got it in a little free library and I was like, hey, that's actually kind of a popular book. I'm very excited. And then like a thing that I never do is read the books that I get out of the little free library like very soon after. They usually just end up in the TBR shelf of doom. I'll get to that later because they're not normally like big hyped releases like this one was. But this is the story about a girl who goes, I believe they were going to a club. She finds this blob out by the dumpster and she thinks it looks like a blobfish, like a dead blobfish, like from the ocean, but like outside of the depths of the water that they're normally in, they look like just a blob. And so she goes, oh, that's kind of weird. It kind of looks sentient. So she picks up the blobfish, she takes it home. And the blob grows eyeballs and starts to talk to her and like turns into a man. And that's all I'm going to say about it. It is very unclear if this is a weird girl lit where like she is hallucinating all of this because her life is spiraling, because there's also a whole storyline in here about her family and how she's not close to them and how she's really mad at herself for like always fucking things up in her life and how she can't keep friends and how she just doesn't like other people. And I really loved this because story time for me. I was actually reading this when I found out that we were moving sooner than expected. And there's a lot of like family drama in here that was like a little too close to home to what was happening in my real life. So that might have like led to a lot of the reason why I just absolutely loved this book. I gave it 4.5 stars. I highly recommend it. It's going to be in a weird girl lit recommendation sometime soon, but I really enjoyed this. It's one of the better ones that I read. And then I read The Locked Door by Freida McFadden. I've only read one other Freida McFadden. I know she's super popular. I know a lot of people really hate some of her books. Even the people that really love a lot of her books also have books of hers that they hate, which I find fascinating with an author, especially when there are people that don't normally talk crap about books and they're just like, this book was terrible, and it's usually a Freida McFadden. I'm like, what does this woman do? And this is one I was pretty sure that people really liked, and I actually really liked it. I thought it was fun. It's about a girl who we know from the very beginning that her dad was a serial killer and he got arrested and he's been in jail for like 20 years, and like she changed her name and she was like going on with her life, and then something comes back to haunt her where she thinks that her father has gotten out, and that is the mystery, is us figuring out who is doing this copycat or if it's her father who has escaped. And I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. I read it really fast, as I do with most thrillers, but yeah, I thought this was a good one. I don't know if that's the general consensus on that Freida McFadden, but that was mine. The sun has been going in and out this whole time. I'm like watching in real time how fast it moves because I've only been filming for like 20 some minutes. Anyway, I then read Why We Fly by Kimberly Jones and Gilly Seagull. This has a blurb from Angie Thomas, who wrote The Hate U Give, which we all know and love. And so I was like, I need to read that. And this is about two girls who are best friends. It's their, I think, senior year of high school. And it's just her like being worried about trying out for cheerleading because she got injured the year before and she wants to be able to be on the cheer team. And it is dual perspective of both of theirs. And the big crux of this story is that this is during the time period where people were kneeling in protest during the national anthem for marginalized communities. And these girls decide one day on a whim to kneel during the national anthem at a football game, and they get attacked because one girl is white and one girl is black. And as you might guess, because of racism in America, the black girl takes the full brunt of it because of the color of her skin and because of who she is, even though she's not the one that premeditated it. And it's a lot of racial tension and about the concept of standing up for your rights and like the right to peaceful protest, because the town really like it's really angry and that deals with all the social media aftermath of something like that when your clip goes viral of something that you did at school and now everybody knows who you are as a teenager. That's a lot for anyone. That's a lot. But I really liked that part of this book. I didn't necessarily care for the first like 25%. I thought was a little slow because it was just these two teenage girls' lives. But I ended up really enjoying a lot of the commentary in here. And as you can see, there's a lot more dog ears towards the end because that's when all of those conversations were happening. But I think it's a good one. I gave it 4 stars. And then I read Hide by Kiersten White. I don't think I've ever read anything by Kiersten White. I can't even think of, I think she wrote like YA paranormal. But this is what is propositioned as a group of, is it 12 or 14? I can't remember. It's like a bunch of teenagers that get taken to this amusement park in the middle of nowhere, and the idea is that you have to hide during the nighttime, and it's a game of hide and seek, and you are told that it's a game show and that whoever hides and doesn't get caught and is the last one to get caught wins the prize money. And a lot of these kids come from really hard walks of life, and like our main character is homeless and like has been living in orphanages across the country, and like one of the owners recommended this to her because she's really good at hiding because she never sees her and stuff like that. But this definitely follows weird, it's a weird perspective shift because you do get the perspective of like every kid in this game. It's almost like, for lack of a better explanation, like a battle royale if you've read that book. And it turns out that things are not what they seem when kids start dying, because they were told that this was a game show and that the kids that were out are just like taken away and like sent back home, and like you still get like fame from being on a game show even if you don't win, right? And that is not the case. It turns out that the kids are dying and it doesn't occur to them that it is a possibility until they see one of the kids' remains and they go, oh, this is serious. So I actually really enjoyed this. I've heard a lot of people say they hated this over the years. I think I only knew like 1 or 2 other people who really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. It's not quite a 5, but it did keep me hooked. I think the hardest part about this is the writing style and the way it's told of all the different perspectives. It was sometimes hard to tell who was talking and whose perspective we were in because there were so many characters, and I don't think all the voices were differentiated that well. But I did enjoy it, and I gave it 4 stars. And then I quickly listened to the audiobook of Shout by Laurie Halse Anderson. This is her actual real life story. If you read her very famous book Speak, which is a story about rape, which was very personal to her when she wrote it, and then that book blew up back in the day. But this is told in verse, and I listened to the audiobook. I love Laurie Halse Anderson. Every book of hers that I've read, I've loved, so I give this 4.5 stars. It's a really good listen on audio. And then I read one of my most anticipated books of the year, and that is Can't Get Enough by Kennedy Ryan. Can you see all my dog ears? Oh my gosh. They're really hard to see on camera, but I thought that nothing would live up to This Could Be Us. I do think I like This Could Be Us like a smidgen more, but I was so excited for Hendrik's story. She's one of my favorite characters in the series, and she's a social media manager, and it turns out that she just has not had time for dating. She has hookups now and then, but she is the member of their little friend group within this series. I just don't need no man, essentially, is her attitude, and she's like very well off. She's very doing well for herself, both professionally and financially, and she ends up talking to this man at a party one night, and it turns out that he is a billionaire, and she's like, ooh, I don't know about that. I don't really want to date a rich man. I already have money. I don't need to be taken care of, like that type of thing. But also the other big crux of the story is that she is going back home as much as she can because her mother is dealing with Alzheimer's, and it's been getting really bad, and her father passed away years ago, and so it's her being torn between her career and also taking care of her family. And I love Hendrix so much. She also has this whole thing that's part of her brand where she helps Black women owned companies get their starts. So she's based in Atlanta, and that is a very important thing to her. And I'm so happy that we got Hendrix's story. I gave this 5 stars. I do think my ranking of the three would be This Could Be Us, Can't Get Enough, and then Before I Let Go. But I think that might be an unpopular opinion with the series. Next up, I read When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. If you've been around here for a while or heard me talk about any horror books in the last couple of years, I love Nat Cassidy. Mary was on my favorite books of last year. I was very excited for his new release. I've read all of his books at this point, and I think this is very, very closely tied with Mary, in my opinion. This is the story of our main character, Jess. She's like a struggling actress. She's trying to make it out in LA. And one day she like comes across this little boy who seems to be running away from what she imagines is an abuser, because that is what the situation looks like. And so she thinks she's being heroic and saving this boy from the father who is like chasing him through the streets and like looks like an actual lunatic. And we know from like a very small perspective in the beginning that the dad is relatively harsh with the child. And so, again, there is a bias of being in the child's perspective. But she helps save this kid, and then she realizes on the run that something is very, very, very different about this child. And it turns out that his imagination might have some sort of power. I'm not going to tell you what kind of power, but I will say if you have read Chuck Tingle's Bury Your Gaze, it reminded me a lot of that one, but in a much more serious way, if that makes any sense. I don't know if it does, but these two books I would definitely say are very similar in certain ways. And if you liked one, you would definitely like the other. But yes, I gave this 5 stars. I love Nat Cassidy. I love his stories. I love his horrors. This is not quite as much horror as his other books, in my opinion. But I do think it deals a lot with the subject of abuse and like fatherly figures and like parental issues and things like that. So trigger warnings for those, but I really enjoyed this one. And then as I was starting my packing journey, I listened to the audiobook of We Spread by Ian Reid. I wanted to listen to the audiobook because I know that there's an old woman that narrates it, which I really, really enjoyed. And this is the story about a woman who thinks she is starting to get some of the early signs of Alzheimer's. And so she finds herself very mysteriously in a home, like a nursing home, and she does not remember how she got there because her husband has been passed away. She doesn't know, she doesn't have any family that would have put her in there. She's very confused. And also, this nursing home is very strange. There are things like there's only, I think, 6 people in the nursing home, which I don't know if you're familiar with nursing homes, but that is not normal. It's usually like upwards of 50 or so people, depending on the facility. And it seems that there are weird things happening. There's a woman there who is very controlling of everything that goes on in their environment, and she starts to have gaps in in her memory. And she is trying to decide if it is just the disease, like slowly peeling away at her sanity, or if there is also something else going on that is very mysterious and threatening in this nursing home, in the situation she's found herself in. I gave this 4 stars. I think this is one of Ian Reid's better books. I'm Thinking of Ending Things is my favorite of his, but this was a very, very fast read, and I definitely recommend it as a horror / thriller. I feel like this one's more of a thriller than a horror. And this was my time period where I got back into audiobooks, which were also audios of physical books that I read because packing. But I read We Are Not Free by Tracy Chee, and this is a story about how many kids? 14 Japanese American teens. I think we only get 3 perspectives, but there is a group of kids in this, and this is set during the time when the Japanese internment camps were happening after Pearl Harbor. And this was a very difficult read considering what everything that is going on with the current administration and ICE raids. So if you are sensitive to that subject matter, please tread carefully. This is a YA, and it deals a lot with these kids' lives being disrupted and theirs and their families dealing with being othered in that way and during this time period, and how people either did nothing or actively yelled slurs at them in the streets, and which was worse, because a lot of the kids have different opinions. Some of them prefer when people are just yelling them and are upfront about it, and some of them prefer when that is not the case, because that's a very hard thing for any teenager to deal with, let alone any sort of adult either. But I enjoyed this. It's a very hard read, but I did give it 4 stars, and I do think it's another YA that like most people should read, and I would love to hand to actual teenagers to help them understand the climate of what we are going through now and how it mirrors what we have gone through before. And then the last audio I listened to in like one sitting was I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. I thought her last name was Hartman for the longest time. I didn't even realize it until I was looking at the book. But this is a story about a girl who lives in this compound / prison with a bunch of other women. None of them know why they're there. They don't know how they got there, but they've been there their whole lives. And this girl, I believe, is 14. So they know they've been there at least 14 years if the girl can remember correctly how old she is. There's also a significant age gap between her and all of the other women, and the other women remember a lot of things about society and what they used to do, but there are gaps in their memory of how they got to this prison that they are in. And one day they all escape. Like, there's what I assume is a siren. It's never said what it is, but all of the guards, who are men, disappear out into the wilderness and leave the door unlocked, and they all escape. And they are going out into the world to see where they have ended up. And the story carries on from there. I found this really fascinating. It's a very interesting look into womanhood and what does it mean if women are still subjugated to men but are not able to interact with them, like as if like the guards are men but they don't interact with them at all, which was really weird. And it's almost a coming of age thing for our main character, because she's like, why do the women do this? She's also like in an age where she's discovering her sexuality, and she's like, am I supposed to like the men? Like, I don't know anything. Like, she doesn't know anything about being a person, let alone a woman, because this situation is all she's ever known. But she kind of instigates a little bit of a rebellion within the group of women before they escape. And the whole like first half of the book is us trying to uncover the mystery of why they're here, and if there's a way for them to get out, or if anybody remembers how they got there. And I liked the mystery aspect of the first half a lot more than I liked the ending. I went into this knowing that there wasn't like a conclusion. Like, we are never told how they get there, and I knew that going in, so be aware of that, because I feel like a lot of people that have read a lot of sci-fi or dystopian would may be annoyed by that. It's definitely not about like the specifics or anything. It is more of just a character study on women and womanhood and captivity and what that can do to the brain. But I enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. I understand why people like it. I do think it was slightly overhyped, in my opinion. But yeah, those are all of the books that I read in the last 2 months, and I have 30 books on my TBR. For June, if you haven't seen my June TBR, I will leave that link down below too, along with my vlog, and I hope that you stick around. If you've never been here before, hi. Please subscribe. I'm going to be posting a lot in the month of June for Pride. I already have started a vlog, and my intention was to have a vlog up every like week and a half, every 2 weeks. And I already have 30 minutes of footage, and it is June 1st as I'm filming this. So you might be getting a lot more vlogs than that. But we'll see. But I hope you stick around. Thank you all for watching, and I will see all of you guys next time.